When we start meditating, it feels unusual. We've been shuffling through life, doing as we were told, thinking as we were told for 20, 30 years, when finally we decide that's not working for us, and we're going to sit and watch our breathing instead. But if we continue long enough to find out what meditation is really about, if we become interested in irreducible truth, then we discover something amazing. What we call the meditative state is actually our default mode. And it was the anxious, hurried, worried state that was the unusual thing all along. In my early 30s, I was carrying a lot of tension in my body, so much actually that I was causing myself chronic pain. But the idea that this pain was of my own making never crossed my mind. Yet the doctors I saw could find no pathology, could find nothing wrong with me. Eventually, I invested $25,000 studying a little-known discipline called Alexander technique. Over 5 years, my incredibly skilled teachers showed me how to stop activating the mental processes that caused my tension, which in turn caused my pain. At the same time, I was studying the Dharma, doing lots of mindfulness practice. Alexander technique taught me to stop the mental processes that turned on muscles. The Dharma, my mindfulness practice, taught me to stop the mental processes that turned on fear, worry, shame, guilt, doubt, desire, apathy, selfishness. Before I started practicing those two disciplines, there was nothing anyone could have said to convince me that my problems were of my own making. It seemed obvious to me that tension, anxiety, self-loathing were my default mode, were normal. But once I'd understood and practiced enough, once I'd glimpsed relief enough times, everything changed. It became obvious that I'd been deeply deluded, that there was nothing normal about the awful condition I'd been in for 10 years to that point. If you sit on a bicycle, the default position is stationary. You have to activate the mental processes associated with pedaling if you want to go anywhere. In the same way, as a human being, your default position is rest. Not laziness, not inactivity. For the rest that I'm talking about, what we might call spiritual rest, is the underlying basis of all activity, as well as relaxation. Without the mental processes of desire, aversion, fear, worry, etc., you are at peace. Here's the takeaway. You can spend a lifetime trying to create peace. But if you do, you're like one who goes in search of diamonds, not realizing your pockets are already full of them. When you recognize what I'm telling you here, your practice is transformed from one of effortful cultivation to one of simple recognition. Recognition of what? recognition of those mental processes as object, as extra, as fabricated. Recognition of your true nature as the aware, pure space in which those processes appear. When you make this recognition more and more often, more and more deeply, those mental processes begin to look absurd. Why would you perpetuate any of this once you become aware of how you're doing so? In another way of speaking, through this recognition, your practice is transformed from an additive process to a subtractive process. An additive process depends upon the fallible thinking mind, which is what got you into all your messes in the first place. Because you must choose, either for yourself or by trusting a teacher or teaching, what to add and how to add it. For example, you might practice metta to cultivate loving kindness. This is a wonderful and wholesome practice. But here's the problem. What if metta is not the most appropriate practice for you right now? And how are you to know? What if, on the relative level, you're already a bit of a softie and you'd be better served doing Zazen, but maybe you don't see that about yourself? Modern practitioners spin out on these kinds of questions for years at a time. But here's the good news. You're already loving and kind by your very nature. Millions of practitioners before us who simply got quiet enough have realized this. So, you can stack loving kindness on top of your deep psychological and spiritual afflictions, which may remain unresolved, or you can go the other way and focus on seeing those afflictions as they arise, recognizing that they come and go, and that you remain as the knowing that is present in both their appearance and their absence. This leads to their dissolution and the revealing of natural loving kindness, along with natural clarity, wisdom, and effectiveness, aka awakening. Now here's some even better news. This practice of recognition requires no special posture, no rituals, no formal lineage. If those help you, great. If they don't, great. This recognition need only be practiced for a brief moment, as often as you remember. This is how you learn to meditate all day, every day. Not through effort, but by relaxing into natural meditative stability, which, believe it or not, is another facet of your fundamental nature. I'm not condemning deliberate, relativistic, additive practices. They have their place. Rather, I'm making an invitation to drop those practices as soon as you're ready. How do you know if you're ready? Just try what I've recommended here. If it's accessible to you, congratulations. If it's not, keep doing whatever formal practices you need until you can access what I've shared here. Then try it again. I strongly suspect you'll be thrilled at how little energy this practice requires, and thus how much more often you'll be able to practice until finally the apparent boundary between practicing and not practicing is dissolved. Then you're both practicing all the time and none of the time. You've revealed that natural meditative stability. You've won the cosmic lottery. I will be here to congratulate you, friend, on that day. If you'd like to know where you're at right now in this whole picture, take my 1-minute quiz. There's a link in the description. As always, I'll tell you what your current mindfulness level is, how to get to the next one, and then I'll personally email you to see if I can help. If you enjoyed today's teaching, do all the stuff that tells YouTube you want to see more of them. I upload most days, and I hope to see you back here very soon.